You're listening to WKDW Radio 97.5 and KDWRadio.com, broadcasting from the Bishop West Real Estate Mobile Tower right here in Northport, Florida. Quick reminder, a couple things. Bikers, it's raining out there. Take your time. Drivers, about the bikers. When the roads are damp, with the oil and the water, give the bikers some space. By the way, give yourself some space because, I'll just call it like it is. When idiots are driving like idiots, they send the rest of us to hospitals for months on end. Relax. Take your time. Get home safe. Coming from somebody who worked in a level 1 trauma center, you don't want to go there if you don't need to. So just relax, get home safe, and remember, just because you get home safe doesn't mean everybody else is if you're driving erratic and you push somebody into a ditch. And I got Peter BARTALOTTA in the house today. How you doing?
I'm good, John.
We've got some action happening in the city of Northport on several different fronts. We've got what I consider one of the best turnouts that we could have had as far as election goes for the school board. Overjoyed with the people who are now representing us. I can't wait to have a viewpoint from Mr. Enos from his law side of things and his perspective on that, especially now that we have law enforcement inside our buildings that are controlled by Sarasota County. I think that's going to be an interesting little feature of that whole election. What do you think about that?
When you say law enforcement inside our buildings, you're referring to the schools?
The schools, they have their own police department now. So they don't have us as a city in our school districts anymore, even anywhere up and down the Sarasota County line. That's all hired within house now. Now, I've had the police department on. I've had great conversations with them about the working relationships that they've had and continue to build within the walls of the schools. But we don't have the resource officers inside the schools like we used to. Back in 2008, when my son went there, we now have their own supplied force inside that building.
Yeah, I think it's sad that we've gotten to that point, that we need that. But we do need to have ways to protect our children. I look at and I'm going to go off the local into the national for a second, and I see these, $4 trillion we're spending, and none of it is applied towards school resources. When we can afford to put I'd rather see a Northport police officer in the schools. They're trained. They're constantly trained. They're constantly updated. It's just, we're replicating this. We're replicating something that we already have.
Well,
and it all comes down to money.
I think it was more done for a cost center. They brought the cost in-house. And I don't know how much they're saving by doing that, but I kind of share your viewpoint, because where things kind of divide is, yes, while the Sarasota school district police officers are now intertwining with the students and building those relationships, I think there's a distinct advantage when a Northport police officer actually has a resource officer, actually has that connection with the students in the school and can help feed that information out to the police officers on the street. Not only that, but they can also really, I think, provide a lot more help inside the walls.
Yeah, I totally agree. And for those of you of the listeners that are interested in fiscal, issues and the cost of government and whatever, now we've just doubled the cost. Now the school taxes that we pay separate from the city and separate from the county, those school taxes are now paying for an officer that we were having paid for with our own police department. So it just does. It's sad that we're at that point, I mean, with all the school shootings and what have you. You know, I my answer to the shootings is really simple. I think when one occurs, it should be on the local news. It doesn't need to be national news. I think there should be a silhouette of a person that says this idiot shot up the school. We should never mention their name. We should give them no recognition. Nobody. I don't have a need to know who that person is. He's probably dead because he's been shot by the officers. And what we're doing is we're encouraging people who want notoriety that here's a way to get it. And
I'm going to go. I'm going to go one step further than that, because I interacted on social media a couple times with the shootings, and the gun doesn't kill people unless the sickness of the shooter has that intention.
That's right.
One of the biggest problems that we have as a society is we're scared to death to talk about mental health issues or provide any good resource and payment structure for that problem. And that all started back in the Reagan years and before, when we've taken healthcare and coverage and taken mental health. Mental health was already, and all the social workers out there that are listening to me right now are going to be applauding when I say this. They're underpaid and they overperform.
Yep.
Underpaid in the fact that they absolutely are probably one of the weakest areas of repayment for any of our insurance plans out there. And we are such a scared little society of people that can't get out of their own way, and can't even come to say anything about mental health and where we're at today with it. With all those things happening at the same time, the mental health side of every single shooter, and that would include suicide shooters. Every single one of them have something mentally unstable happening with them at that moment or prior to. We're blaming a gun. I promise you this: if you leave the gun on the counter and you get behind the wheel of a car and you want to go kill somebody, it's already proven fact you will. Okay? If that's your goal, you're going to do it. A gun doesn't kill people. The mental status of the person who has the gun is what in combination kills a person.
So maybe we need elected officials that can think past their nose. You know, they put a police officer in the schools and they'll sit there and they'll tout the fact that mental illness is a major problem. How about putting in an extra guidance counselor, a teacher that sees the kids, every single kid, every single day? They'll see them throughout the course of the year. They'll see things that are different. Why aren't we doing that?
We have guidance counselors.
But put another one in, addressing mental illness.
Well, that's not a guidance counselor. And you know, there's when there's a shooting in a school, and I don't care to talk in depth about what happens inside a school system when there's a shooter, but there's always, after, post, there's also grief counselors that are brought in that are all about taking care of post-traumatic syndrome. We're a society that's scared to preemptively talk about that openly. And evidence is that any parent that has a kid that's not stable doesn't want to talk about it in the open public because they don't want them to get labeled. And I'm not going to sit here and tell you I disagree, because I'm not so sure as a parent I would want that child to get labeled if they're going to get help, if they're trying to get help. But we do so many things as parents to hide deficiencies that we are dealing with it post traumatic also. Because when things happen, it's go back and look at the parents. Go back and look at every one of those parents that knew that their kid was ill. And the response is, well, I knew he had a chance and I hid the guns. Okay, you didn't lock them, you hid them. They were still accessible. Or they were in something they could break into and get. You know, I had this conversation earlier today with another associate, and you know, we set standards in our country on what you're allowed to do when you're 18. So I can join the service. I can go in and learn how to shoot all kinds of weapons that I can't off the street because they're not available on the street unless you're a bad guy and you have a way to get them, and they do. So the reality is bad people who want to do bad things will do bad things. Okay, that's the first and foremost. But the second side of that is we allow our 18-year-olds, was once there, to go into the service, shoot people, kill people, learn weaponry, and they're okay to do that. They're old enough. Think about that for a minute. They're old enough to do all that. They're not old enough to drink. They're not old enough to go to a strip club. I dare say that a strip club might do you less damage than going to war and getting killed.
Yeah, but but
if we're not going to set a standard of behavior at a certain age, you can't pick and choose when you're more mature. So you're more mature to die at 18, but you're not more mature to drink.
Yeah, but I don't think that's the issue. I really think the issue is in a couple of places. Number one, mental health needs to come and get out into the mainstream. I'd rather see school tax money spent on a mental health specialist that would be someone like a guidance counselor, get extra training and maybe put a second one on so they've got the time, instead of a police officer who's doing what? He's walking around the school all day long, and the odds are nothing is going to happen in that school. I mean, it's rare. When you look at all the schools, it happens, and you hope it's not going to be yours. But if mental health is an issue, put that resource in there and keep the regular police involved with the resource officer. The second thing is when you look at guns, I don't think it's as much of who's old enough or not old enough. And I had somebody ask me once, I was thinking about getting a gun when there was violence going on. I thought about it. And they asked me a question. He said, could you kill somebody? So I was looking to buy a gun for protection, right? Not for hunting, for protection. He said, could you kill somebody? And I said, I don't know. He said, then don't buy a gun, because you could wind up getting yourself killed. So it was interesting. But the point is, when someone commits a crime with a gun, that crime gets elevated to attempted murder, because there's only one reason you bring a gun with you, and that's to kill somebody. So if you rob a store for a candy bar and you have a gun with you, your charge is now attempted murder. If you drive a motor vehicle and you are drunk, I say give them one shot. They do it a second time, it's attempted manslaughter. That's what you did. You drove a vehicle and your intent was to kill somebody. If it wasn't, what the heck were you drinking and driving for? So we are so lax on the enforcement of the laws that there's no consequence. When I grew up, there was consequences. I just saw in the news the other day, one of the schools brought back the paddle. You remember the paddle? Right? And it was the gym teacher that had the paddle. It wasn't in every classroom. It was the gym teacher. And I got the paddle once because I didn't have my white gym socks. I had to get in front of everybody in my class, bend down, got hit with a paddle that had little holes in it, okay, made a nice design on your butt, and I got the paddle. And boy, I'll tell you, man, that thing stung. But I'll tell you this, I never forgot my gym socks after that.
That's true. I only have one.
What do the nuns do in the Catholic schools? They hit you across your knuckles. And everyone who ever went to Catholic school knows that, and it's happened to them. So there's consequences. There's consequences to actions, and we have to teach that again. We've lost it. I see people getting in this. Did you see the guy that got sucker punched?
I did. And
I mean, we were thinking of going to New York City.
Yep.
And I was going to take the train because, my wife is a lung transplant, so we want to be careful. I didn't trust the plane, so we were going to go with the train to Midtown. All right, take Amtrak and go to Penn Station. I saw that. I'll tell you something. I got scared. We changed our plans.
So let's talk about that video for a second, because
Guys, 41 times he was in jail.
Yeah,
and the governor gets up and says, "We got him. He's back in jail for parole violation." Parole? He attempted to kill a guy. Did you see that punch?
By the way,
yeah.
If you go back, because nobody's talking about it, you need to go back and rewatch. Is there anything about his hands that you remember?
Yeah, he has something in his hand, I thought.
Oh, he had special gloves on.
Okay.
And I believe they were weighted gloves.
Okay. Is that what it was? Okay.
That punch all by itself, while dangerous, wouldn't have done that sort of damage without some weight behind it. So the forearm, he could have hit him with the bone of his forearm, but he never flinched. He never reacted that he did that. He had their gloves.
Wow.
They might have been metal gloves, and he had them on both hands.
Yeah.
No one's ever talked about the gloves that were on that guy's hands.
Yeah, the guy should be in jail for attempted murder. That's it.
Here's the funny thing. She made her speech. Okay, New York is deserving everything they're getting.
Yeah.
They voted for her. She ran on what she said. She didn't lie. She ran and said what she was going to do. They voted for her. She's in office. You deserve what you vote for. Don't care anymore what side of the political aisle you're from. When you vote for somebody and they are acting the way she's acting, because that person, after she made her speech, was released back on the street because he got out.
Yep.
Because they're full. He was only in jail 41 times before that.
Yeah.
So obviously he needed a 43rd chance.
Yeah.
So it's all relative, and the truth of the matter is we look at society through different lenses here than people in New York. We do. We're blessed. We don't have I think the actions. We have a lot of action here, but because our police department is well educated on where those locations are, it keeps it in check. Okay, most cities don't have the blessing of being able to do that like we do here. We're still growing. We're not out of control growth wise, and we don't have those communities that are hammering the rest of the communities. It's controlled. We still have a good ratio numbers, law enforcement to citizens.
Yes.
And so we're blessed in that regard here. So when we talk about these bigger cities are a beast unto themselves. And when you unleash the beasts inside the cities, California's feeling the same thing right now, because they're not just going in and robbing places. They're going in flash mobs and robbing places.
Yep.
And we've seen it on TV. We've seen all these things. It's kind of funny. They don't promote that on TV as often as they promote somebody shooting a gun. A gun's got a whole different meaning, and it gets people's panties in a knot. Mm-hmm. And the problem with that is, once you get your panties tied in a knot, you can't think anymore, and you can't use common sense. And there's a lot of things that have to be done with really understanding that there's both sides to an issue, but all these idiots that think it's all one side, I don't care whether it's far right, far left. If you don't compromise, you don't get shit done. And we need, as a society, to stop being the quiet voice and start being the louder voice that actually says, why don't we use common sense? Why don't we come to an agreement in the center and start getting some common sense things done for the majority of the citizens of this nation or a city? And you can apply that rule anywhere you want to. But as long as we have chaos going on one side and chaos going on the other side, and those are two of the loudest components that are going on, the people in the middle that are going, we're done, are not getting any satisfaction.
And they're not being heard. They'll get heard, hopefully, when it's time for the elections. That's when you have a chance to get your voice heard.
And hence that I go back to the school board for a second, because that's how we started this show. And you're listening to WKDW Radio 97.5, and I've got Peter Bartalotta on. We're talking about the school board election. And really, I was kind of impressed with the turnout. I don't know the exact number on percentage. It's low. It is always low, but I think it's a good representation for people that are in our school systems, such as teachers and parents and things like that are here permanently. So I'm going to walk a little bit back on the harsh criticism I'm going to give, because 35,000, let's see, I think it was roughly about 38,000, maybe 35,000 total.
Yeah, I'm looking at it now. It was 69,000 people showed up. So it was 36.7% voter turnout, which was really pretty good in a primary.
Yeah, and really, we're talking about something that happened in August.
Yeah,
and not November. So
yeah.
I'm not going to give citizens a hard time about that, and I'd like to see the number higher. Okay,
yeah.
Because people, but take into consideration that we're out of season. A lot of people that don't live here don't pay attention to that sort of thing. So there's a huge part of our society that goes back home and they vote religiously back home about their local stuff. They may not do that same thing down here.
Mm-hmm.
And for good reason. They don't live here but maybe 3-4 months out of the year. Okay, so I don't want that influence either. Okay.
No, and they can't vote down here if they vote somewhere else. You can only vote in one place.
Correct. But I'd rather have people voting here who live here full time. Yeah. That are part of our everyday life. And so school situations, the referendums and the school boards, I'm all about changing it up. We had, like I said, we've got a ex-sheriff now, in Mr. Enos, that is going to be on our school board. I think it's a good thing to have that perspective coming from him. He gives and everybody says, well, what's his experience? Okay, wait a minute. He was a sheriff. He did a lot of things in conjunction with a lot of the schools and had to work a lot of things out with the citizens. So I think he's extremely qualified, and I think he gives what we've needed, which is also a different perspective on law enforcement inside the schools.
Well, when I look at the school board, I want to see us getting back to school and having law enforcement background and sitting on the school board is nice, but I don't think that's the job of the school board. The job of the school board is to educate our children. When we put the EDC together, the number one thing we went after was education. Without a good foundation of education, you will not have a strong economy, period. I don't care what you do. Because if you can't get qualified workers, guess what? You're not going to get good companies coming in here. So the number one job of the school board is to educate. And I think I'm glad to see the school board changed. It changed hands. Philosophically, it's a whole new game now. Kind of out with the old and in with the new. But I hope they put the focus on education and getting the kids trained on, moving forward with skill training and job training and getting back to the basics and teaching civics again. Get into the history. If you don't have the history, you'll never. The easiest way to change people is to make sure that they're ignorant about what happened in the past. The Jews constantly push on on what happened in Germany because they don't want people to forget it. And in America, we're tearing down statues. Well, you may not like the guy, but he was a part of our history. You need to understand that. It's not one-sided or two-sided. History is history, period. This is what happened. You may not like it. That's okay. But this is what happened. Don't change it and say we don't like what happened, so we're going to change it to a different narrative. That's crazy.
I think we've gone from the watered down effect of history to the downright, if you disagree with it and you didn't like it, let's erase it. Okay. Yeah. So I think what you're talking about there is that I don't know that we could do anything as a society if we didn't look at what we've done and how we can improve upon it.
That's right.
We're really we're a weak society. We are absolutely a very weak society that we can't constructively look at what the history of our country was and realize that it's okay to change. It ain't okay to change it.
That's right.
Change history.
Big difference. Good. I like that. That's good. Yep.
And so foolish people do foolish things. And once again, the loudest voice gets taken care of. And if you continue to listen to just the loudest voice, and right now, most of our politicians, I love their answer because I know exactly where the idiots get it from. Okay. Because when their first response is, but the polls say, who did you pull?
Yeah.
You didn't. I've been around for 59 years of my life now. I got to tell you, I never got a poll. Nobody's ever called me and asked me what I thought.
Me neither. No.
And the funny thing is, we're running our country, and I don't care which side of the aisle you're from. Really don't care.
We're not running our country.
We're running it the same way because the whole key to this thing is if we're a nation that doesn't start looking local all the way up, and I'm starting local and looking all the way up. If you don't start looking at your representation, educating yourself who and what they are and what they're about, take away the D in the R. Don't care about that anymore. Right. Take it away. There are good people on both sides of the aisle. Okay? There really are. Both of those D and the R have made sure as a country we can't have an independent because there's no chance that they can get on a ticket. No chance. So we've taken away, we've actually said we're a great country as long as you play with these two parties. What do you do when both parties are acting like idiots? Because they forgot the people in the middle of the country. And I'm not talking about the middle of our country. I'm talking about the everyday working class citizen that's in every one of the 50 states. And I until we change what we're doing and we get people into voting and out of position of, look, my party won. Our government loves the fact that we're arguing over who won and who lost. And
Yeah.
with 50% of the nation going at this, it's only 1% that you have to win by. Now think about that. As long as they keep the rest of us and I'm going to throw it in there, as long as they keep the rest of us idiots out here arguing with each other, nothing ever gets done.
Well, you know, I always say that there's a few questions you should ask every politician, and this cuts through everything. First question you want to ask anybody who's running for office: what are you going to do? Very simple.
Correct.
And don't listen to them say I'm gonna fix the budget, or I'm gonna be fiscally responsible, or I'm gonna be transparent, or I'm gonna be whatever, because that's part of your job. Tell me specifically, what are you going to do? I'm going to build a new community center. Okay, cool. That's something that I can actually know that you either did it or you didn't at the end of your term, right? Now, usually if you ask, and I've met with everybody who runs, and I ask the question, and I'll be honest with you, very few of them know. They always go back to what the job is. But then ask them if they do give you an answer, then say, how are you going to do it? And that's usually where you see some stumbling. They get past that. What in your background? What?
Can you use that same criteria on every vote that you cast?
Yes, absolutely.
Because I don't want us to be about just local, because because it's a common sense approach.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Look at the election going on right now, and I'm not picking sides or anything, but Charlie Crist ads are nothing but attacks on DeSantis. He doesn't say what he's going to do. Okay. And usually when they pick those political things that they say they're going to do, their answer is usually going to be, well, I can't guarantee it because I'm only one person. Well, then tell me what you can do. Tell me what you will do when you get elected.
Oh, I got a question.
Specific.
Got a question for you. It said, do you believe that Welland Park is sucking the life out of the economic development of the city proper?
I'm not sure what that means. Hi, Bill. Good to see you again. I don't think Welland Park is sucking the life out of economic development. I think they are bringing some economy. It's more retail oriented, so it's not the high paying jobs kind of a thing. But I don't think they're sucking the life out of it. I think our economy needs to be better. We need more high paying jobs. We need to keep people in the city, spending their money in the city, and working at jobs that they can afford to raise their children with.
So let's circle Welland Park for a minute. And Bill, if you've got any more questions along this line, go ahead. But or any other listener, please. If you're on Facebook or you're on the radio, if you join us on Facebook, Real Talk 97.5, you can throw your questions out there. And I highly encourage anybody to add whatever they want to add, even if you think we're wrong. If we're wrong, we're wrong. And we can admit that. But what we're really trying to do is get people fired up enough to learn about the city, what's happening within the city, what's happening even at the just local, and then climb up the ladder and start talking about what is happening in politics in the state, and then go into national. And really, if you don't vote local, you can't complain. You get what you get, So there's a rule of thumb. We've talked about this before on the show. First rule I have is, did you vote? If you didn't vote and you haven't ever voted, you don't have crap to say to me. Because you get what you get when you're not present. It's like going to dinner, and I know you're coming, but your dinner's on the table. Okay, you're going to get what you're going to get. You're not going to get what you wanted, but you're going to eat. Okay, but you can't bitch about it. Keep it real, and so encouraging people to get out and vote is the first thing. And so, yeah, I got another question from Bill. John, when do you believe that the District 5 candidates will start addressing the issues on the ballots, but other than beating the course of Roland Park, that neither will have an impact on in the courts. Listen, I think that any candidate that is running on a local basis that hides from the community should be your no. First off, I think any candidate that runs on leaving a community should be voted no. Do I believe that people are educated enough or want to get educated enough to just not go into a voting booth and pull the lever because they like the name? I don't know. Candidates who are running in District 5, you have an open invitation. And I will promise you this. The candidates that are running in District 5, I've had one of them on my show. I will get invitations out to both again. And I can promise you that one of them right now is beating my door down to be on again. Now, here's what I hate. And this, Peter, you can join in on this in a second. But I didn't ask easy questions. If you go back and you pull that interview, there's at least 3 or 4 times where he sat back in his chair and he said, boy, that's a tough question. But here's what he did. And this is why I liked him. Now, I didn't endorse it. I didn't say vote for him. He answered every single question. He didn't hem-haw around about it, but I gave him the opportunity to answer them. We have not done a really good job locally in putting 2 candidates, 2, not 4, not 6. We've done I think a bad job of holding both of these candidates accountable because they should be required. If you're running for office, we should be requiring them to be in a debate. Required. If they don't, then we need to put the full force of the city behind and say, they're not talking. If they're not willing to talk now, what makes you think they're for the community to begin with?
You know, here's what I would encourage all the voters, all the residents of Northport to do. Go to the Supervisor of Elections website, sarasotavotes.com. And on there's a section that it says candidates. And you can look at the candidates that are running for the seat. It'll tell you how much money they've raised, and you'll see their documents that they filed when they ran. On that documentation is a phone number. Call them.
That's a good idea.
Talk to them. You know, you ask the question. Ask them a question like, what are you going to do to give me more job opportunities? Or what are you going to do to lower my taxes? Or what are you going to do to give my kids a better education? Or what are you going to do to get us a hospital? Although we got one now, thank God. But, you know, be specific. What is it on your mind that you think is important to Northport? And then ask them that question flat out. Don't let them tell you the other stuff. Because what they're going to do is tell you what their platform is. And that's okay. But what is the voters' platform? What do you want in Northport? And then ask yourself the question, do I feel comfortable that this person is the person that can do what he says he can do? If he is, vote for him. If he's not, don't vote for him.
And we only have 2 candidates.
We only have 2 candidates running. One of them is going to be in. One of them is going to be your next city commissioner.
Right.
For 4 years.
So, Chuck, I promise you the invitations will go out effective today. I already know I'm going to get a yes for one. I don't know about the other. And notice I'm not name dropping it. It's okay. I want both people on my show, and I want both people to feel comfortable on my show. But I want both people to understand this. It will not be, rah, how are you doing? I'm glad you're running. We're going to ask real questions. We're going to get down to the nitty gritty. And we're going to change up what needs to happen in the city, which is At some point, we have to hold not our commissioner. I'm sorry. If you think we have to hold our commissioner accountable, it's the wrong step first. If you don't learn to hold yourself accountable and go vote, hold yourself accountable on who you're voting for and why, then the other part doesn't matter, because we're the guilty party, because we don't have a high percentage of people that actually go out and vote. But we have a really high percentage of the people that live in this city that walk around with their head tucked, not paying attention to what is actually happening around them. That's the problem.
And Bill, to answer your question, they'll start addressing the issues when the people start asking them to address the issues. Right now, when you hear them speak, a lot of them are speaking at forums that have an agenda set up right from the get-go. So they're going to try to link them to the Communist Party, or they're going to try to link them to de-annexation. And those are the questions they're asking. They're asking the wrong questions. They're asking the wrong questions.
And the right question. Give me one, other than what you've said so far. I want you to give me one question that you think no one ever asks, and you ran. Okay? You ran. And so it's a little different, because I'm asking you what you were trying to prepare for because of how you think. But what was one question that you think never got asked to you when you were running that should have been?
What are you going to do? Nobody ever asked. So my platform, I told you what I was going to do. And I was very specific. And I won't go into it now because I'm not running, and that's history. But you can talk about it another time. But very specific, that you can measure at the end of the day, did Peter do what he said he would do? And it didn't require another commissioner, it didn't require anything other than I said I could do it. And then I had a plan to do it. We don't do that in elections, and people don't ask the question, what are you going to do? Don't get political on me. You're going to fix the budget? How are you going to fix the budget? I mean, if they want to play that game, play it with them. How are you going to fix the budget? And then what in your background tells me you've got the skill sets to do that? And then who else besides yourself is needed, because nobody is perfect, nobody can do it all, to get that job done? And the last question I ask now is, what is it going to cost? And I'll tell you something. You ask people those questions, you watch real fast how somebody who looks really polished when they're running, answering the questions that they've set up to answer, you ask those questions and go right down the list on every single answer, because they can do 10 things, but each one has the same response. What are you going to do? How are you going to do it? What in your background tells me you have the skill set to do it? Who are you going to use to help you, and what's it going to cost? You're going to do something else? Same 5 questions. And you watch, and you can just watch the body language and watch the way they answer it, and you're going to know either they're BSing you or they're serious. It's very simple.
So I've got another statement and question, basically from Chuck English. Outstanding. Let them debate. I wish they would more and more. But the issue on November's ballot and November's balance, such as price widening and the city manager's ability to sign off on contracts without commission approval. I didn't realize we had that. So that one will be a great question to ask the commission next month, because they'll definitely be on the show the third Monday of the month. And I will ask that question. And Chuck, if I don't ask that question right up front, please text me that question and ask me that, because and if the commissioners are listening right now, and a lot of them do, be prepared for that, because I will ask you that directly on the next show.
And let me throw my 2 cents in on that because I do sit on the Charter Review Board, and that was a recommendation made by the Charter Review Board, so I'm very familiar with it. What we looked for in there is that the commission picks a dollar amount that says we're going to allow the city manager to make financial decisions up to a certain amount. And that's to relieve the commission meetings of going through things at a $3,000 approval they need. It's like the city manager has got to have some responsibility to do. And if they're not comfortable with them, lower the amount or take it away. It doesn't force it that it has to happen. The commission can always change it. Okay? So it deals with how much confidence do you have in your executive who's running the city. And if you've got the confidence that he can make intelligent decisions and give him a little more money to spend, allowing the commission to spend more time on bigger issues instead of nickel and dime issues. That's why it was put in. And I'm, be interesting to see how the voters react to that.
So Adele Burrito says, yes, love it. So Adele was one of our wrestlers here at Northport. How you doing, Adele? I appreciate you, bud. But it's all of these things that we're talking about is really a direct connection to staying connected with the city, learning about your vote, why it matters, and then actually going out and pulling the lever and doing your job. A lot of people, and I say this because November is not that far off. If you don't think that your vote matters, you're wrong. Yep. It matters every single time. I don't care about the national policies because they're gonna go where they're gonna go. But if you don't grab a hold of local issues and understand what's happening in your own neighborhoods, nothing's going to change the way you would like it. You're not going to have any input. And my example that I gave you earlier, if you offer to go to dinner and you tell me we're going to meet there and you want me to order, I'm just going to order you dinner. If you don't tell me what you want, you're going to eat what I give you. That's not voting. Not voting is eating what somebody else served you for dinner and not having choices. You have choices when it comes to voting.
Yep.
No, don't care what party, what's your vote, who do you vote for. If you don't vote, don't fish.
I agree.
There, that is the way to put it.
And I hear people tell me all the time, well, I don't think there's we haven't got any good candidates. Did you meet them? No. Did you talk to them? No. Did you read their literature? No. So how do you know? So you're just saying it to be convenient. You should vote and you should educate yourself about who you're voting for. It's not that hard. It really isn't. Like I said, go to the Supervisor of Elections, votesarasota.com. Go to the page that shows their paperwork. Their phone number is on it. Write down 1 or 2 questions you want to ask them. Call the next guy. It takes you all of about 10 minutes. And you're done. And you can say, I researched it. I spoke to the horse. I got it right from the horse's mouth.
Well, we've been at this now, and I can't even believe it. I just looked down at the clock, and I'm like, we've got about 5 minutes left.
It always goes that way.
and the funny thing is, we really hadn't even hit certain things that we were going to talk about. We kind of grouped them together. When we look at our city as a whole, would you, and I did this with Barbara Langdon, and I kind of asked her the grade that we would give ourselves within the city and how we're changing. We've got a lot of adapting going on. We're doing a lot of different things within permitting. We've got a new city manager. We've got a new outlook within the walls of City Hall. I think a good structure being set forth for really a progressive mindset to moving this city forward. And I think hopefully we can get the non-grower mindset out. I don't believe we're there yet. That's just my opinion. I don't know people's opinion, but when you stifle growth and you send it south, you're not really understanding the full impact of what happens to a city if you don't have commercial growth going on in your city. I will educate you just a tad, and you can then jump in. That anytime that a city doesn't have good commercial growth, just plan on paying more taxes.
Yeah.
That's all. So go ahead, Peter.
Were you going to ask me how I would rate the city? Is that the question? Started off by saying you were going to ask me the question.
I got off on a tangent.
Okay, so before I answer it, I will say this: I will never, ever give a person, if the top rating is a 5, they'll never get a 5. Okay, they'll never get an A+. Why? Because that means you can't improve. Everybody can improve somewhat, and you need a way to, you can give a constructive 4.5 and say, here's what we need to do. But I would rate the city right now, under the newer leadership, I'd give it probably a C+, maybe a B-, maybe, probably more of a C+. I think we've got a lot more to go. I think we're on the right track. I think we've got competent people to take us there. And now it's the proof is in the pudding now. We'll find out about where the competency is. Is it really going to do it, or is it just going to be more talk? So I'm encouraged. I'm excited. I think there's a great future for Northport. But we'll wait and see.
Well, and here's the funny thing is that even the people that for years ran the city, and prior to me being here, but the people who really wanted to stifle the growth, how successful are you right now? Because we have one of the fastest growing communities up and down the coast. And it's a really, really huge asset that we have open-minded people willing to take chances like the Atlanta Braves and bring them here and see the development of that corridor over there. It's a shame that they're the only ones in that whole area, other than the addresses that City Hall have, the fire department and the safety house. That if you pull up on the white pages and pull up the address of the Atlanta Braves, shocking. They didn't put Venice. They put Northport.
Yeah.
Because they're in the city of Northport.
Yeah.
And the city of Northport brought them there. Everybody in Welland Park, just an eye-opening experience for you. I know that you're fighting to get out, most of you. But your address is fake proof that you're not in Northport. You pay your taxes to Northport. You get all your services from Northport. And the reality is maybe you should be proud of where you live versus trying to live where you don't live.
And let me build on that and suggest that you call your commissioners and ask the commission to put a bus tour together for the residents of Welland Park to show them the beautiful, beautiful city that they live in. Okay? And take them around. And I'll tell you, I used to give tours, and I always got 2 responses. First was, are we still in Northport? It's, we say 104 square miles like it's no big deal. Try driving it sometime. And I only showed them about 20%. And the second thing I get is, wow. So before you get all bent out of shape de-annexing, and I think it's only a small group over there, but take a look and call the city to take you guys on a tour. They've done it before. Look at the city you're in. It's amazing. Absolutely amazing.
It is. And I'd like to go into this more, but we're at 3:59 and I've got to get off the air. So this is John Rawlings and Peter Bartalotta saying that was a fast 55 minutes.
Sure was.
You guys be safe out there. Don't do anything stupid on the roads.
Bye-bye.
God bless. We'll talk to you guys. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.